Well, the events of the past 2 years have been historic, and they truly have been unprecedented. They indicate that we are close to the outbreak of the Great Tribulation. How vital it is, brothers, that we continue to recognize Jehovah's channel for receiving spiritual food. The November 15th, 2013 issue of the Watchtower mentioned key points for elders in particular to keep in mind as we prepare to face the attack of that coalition of nations that the Bible calls Gog of Magog. Now, I'm going to quote the article. This is what it stated. This is quote, "At that time, life-saving direction that we receive from Jehovah's organization may not appear practical from a human standpoint. All of us must be ready to obey any instructions we may receive, whether these appear sound from a strategic or human standpoint or not. Now is the time for any who may be putting their trust in secular education, material things, or human institutions to adjust their thinking." Very sober words that apply so well at this particular moment. So, dear brothers and sisters, do you know what time it is? There has never been a more important time to stay alert spiritually and to respond quickly to Jehovah's direction. Jehovah has led us safely to this moment. He has given us everything that we need, and we know He's going to continue to do so. Just as our 2022 year text found at Psalm 34:10 states, "Those seeking Jehovah will lack nothing good." So, dear brothers and sisters, be determined to continue to follow our leader, Jesus Christ, and the channel that He is using today. Because if we do, we will have everything that we need, and right on time.
He looks pleased with himself, doesn't he, Mark Sanderson, giving those concluding comments? But I'm still picking my jaw up off the floor at how culty all of this is. We started off with Mark Sanderson introducing the annual meeting, toying with the audience over the nearness of Armageddon, fueling this doomsday hysteria that exists among Jehovah's Witnesses. We've had talk after talk that demonstrates how controlling and fear-mongering and deluded this organization is, and we're finishing with a flourish, with a reminder of the extent of control among Jehovah's Witnesses. Mark Sanderson, preparing his concluding remarks, apparently felt a burning need to go to the November 15th, 2013 Watchtower and its overtly culty message.
This is what it stated. This is quote, "At that time, life-saving direction that we receive from Jehovah's organization may not appear practical from a human standpoint. All of us must be ready to obey any instructions we may receive, whether these appear sound from a strategic or human standpoint or not."
I think we should ask the question again, do Jehovah's Witnesses lead with this language in their sales pitch? When they contact people in the ministry, when they knock on their doors, when they phone people during the pandemic, do they open with, "Wouldn't you like to join an organization where you don't get to question anything, even if you're asked to do things that may not appear practical from a human standpoint? Wouldn't you like to join that sort of organization?" Or, "How would you like to obey any instructions you receive, whether these appear sound from a strategic or human standpoint or not. Wouldn't you like to join that club? They don't open with that, do they? It's only once you've bought into it, it's only once the sunk cost fallacy kicks in and you're already invested in terms of your time and energy that this sort of overtly culty rhetoric is able to stick. Because how would anyone in their right mind sign up to an organization that gets to tell them what to do irrespective of whether it makes sense, which is what this is saying. And as I've said before, this sort of logic is only a hop, skip and a jump away from Jonestown. If you're able to convince your followers to obey you, even if you're telling them to do something that doesn't make sense, what's stopping you from getting them to drink Kool-Aid? What's stopping you from telling them to drink a pill? This is really, if you think about it, very dangerous rhetoric. They were saying it back in 2013, and guess what? It's in the very latest Watchtower. If we go to the February 2022 Watchtower, page 6, as the end of this system of things draws near, we need to trust in Jehovah's way of doing things as never before. Why? During the Great Tribulation, we may receive instructions that seem strange, impractical, or illogical. Of course, Jehovah will not speak to us personally. He will likely provide direction through his appointed representatives. That will hardly be the time to second-guess the direction or to view it with skepticism, wondering, is this really coming from Jehovah, or are the responsible brothers acting on their own? How will you fare during that crucial time in human history? The answer might be indicated by how you view theocratic direction now. If you trust the direction we receive today and readily obey, you will likely do the same during the Great Tribulation. They're repeating it. They're proud of this reasoning. Well, I say proud. They're not proud enough to lead with this in their introductions on the ministry, are they? As I've already said. Who's going to join a group whose representatives come to you and say, how would you like to join us and follow whatever instruction you're given, even if it seems strange, impractical, or illogical? Would you like to follow illogical instructions? No one's going to come to you as a Jehovah's Witness and lead with that. Again, it's only when you're invested. It's only when you've bought into it to the extent where it has to be true. It has to be true that this sort of overt call to credulity sinks in. And notice how opposed to the very concept of skepticism this organization is. Oh, who'd want to be skeptical? Imagine having the audacity to think, is this really coming from Jehovah, or are the responsible brothers acting on their own? Imagine having the audacity to ask that question. Of course, they expect everyone in other religions to ask that question of their leaders. So that is a valid question if you're a Catholic to ask of the Pope. Oh, is he really doing this because he's being guided by God? Or is he just making this up as he goes along? That would be a valid line of reasoning. It's okay to be skeptical if you are in any other religion or religious group other than Jehovah's Witnesses. It's only once you land in the Jehovah's Witness cult that you need to get rid of skepticism. Skepticism suddenly becomes a bad thing. You just need to readily obey, even if you're told to do things that seem strange, impractical, or illogical, and not appearing sound from a strategic or human standpoint. I ask you, what more evidence do you need that this is a cult? When it gets to the point where they're proud of this, they're not just writing it in their magazines. It's not just buried in pages and pages of magazine literature that almost no one's reading. They're including it in the concluding remarks of the most elite event in the Jehovah's Witness calendar, the annual meeting. And if I was in any doubt previously as to whether this is the worst annual meeting I've ever heard, Mark Sanderson sealed the deal for me there. He just wrapped it up with a nice bow and made it obvious that this is the most culty, the most controlling, the most fear-mongering annual meeting I've ever heard. If the 2016 Remain Loyal to Jehovah was the worst convention ever, as far as I'm concerned, the 2021 annual meeting was the worst annual meeting ever.